Solarpunk is a fictional podcast from the year 2047. It is the future history of my children in America, in Europe, and on Mars. Think of Solarpunk as kind of an immigrant tale. It's about the joy of starting fresh. It's the story of how we heal the world, make it a better place, for you and for me and the entire human race. I am your host, Chris Piak.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
That's Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon. The moon landing was awesome. It really inspired people. It gave them hope. And it certainly changed the lives of the people involved. Buzz Aldrin was a household name all over the world. I knew him, and I grew up in Düsseldorf in Germany. My wife grew up in Moscow, and she heard of him. My wife's parents are Korean and lived in Uzbekistan. They don't know who Buzz Aldrin is. Anyway, 40 years after the moon landing, Buzz still appeared in TV sitcoms.
Would you like to yell at the moon with Buzz Aldrin?
Yes, please.
I own you!
You dumb moon!
I walked on your face!
Don't you know it's day?
That's Buzz Aldrin playing himself on 30 Rock with Tina Fey. Okay, I owe you an apology at this point. I get it. We are now in the year 2047. I grew up in the 1970s and 1980s. And like all men, I reached the peak of my emotional development at the age of 5. I really feel that I had found my true self when I graduated from kindergarten. So I will make a lot of references to people, music and movies from the time between 1970 and 2020. Or as some call it, the Stone Age, before we had clean, unlimited energy, electric cars and flying taxis. Back to my point. I love people who inspire me. I nearly cried when SpaceX shot that Tesla into space. That image of the car floating in space with Earth in the background. The little green plate that read, "Made by humans on Earth." The 2 rocket boosters landing safely back on Earth simultaneously like a ballet. Breathtaking. I still watch that video sometimes. But what I really want is a better life for my family and for you and me. Not just a little bit better, but a lot. I give you an example. Do you recognize this sound? That's a washing machine. Nobody celebrates the washing machine, but it makes our life so much easier, day after day. So, here's my personal moon landing experience. It happened a few weeks back on July 20th, 2047. My daughter Elizabeth arriving on Mars. Here she is, setting her foot on Mars for the very first time.
Come on, open the doors. Here we go. Hey, stop pushing. Okay, I'm walking down the ramp. Small baby steps as they showed us in training.
Gravity is low on Mars. A young woman has roughly the weight of a kindergarten child. You need to walk carefully.
Hey, that's stupid. Let me walk like an adult. Woohoo! Awesome! Just went like 3 meters high with one step. Woohoo! Woohoo!
Elizabeth bumped her head on the ceiling of the boarding tunnel after that. Remember physics? Your weight might be lower on Mars, but your mass is the same. Result, bump on the head. She's fine, don't worry. My point is, there were no cameras when Elizabeth arrived on Mars. No live broadcast all over the world. Elizabeth is the 893,297th person to settle on Mars. Public interest was moderate. But Elizabeth, her life changed forever when she set foot on Mars. For our family, that was the moon landing. Or rather, Mars landing. I have a video of her very first step on Mars. You just heard a part of it. In the video, you see the dry, red dust of Mars. The Martians covered the floor of the entrance tube with it, so that you get a Mars feeling when you arrive. When Elizabeth stepped out of the rocket, the dust stirred up and it just kept floating. I know, my little girl, that cloud of dust was just the start. She will shake up everything on Mars.
I have a million pictures in my head and I can see them so clearly. Like, you know that famous photo of the immigrant mother from the 1930s? She's dirty and two toddlers are hiding their faces and the baby is sleeping in her arms and her face is all worn and old, even though she's clearly a young woman. Dorothea Lange shot that photo. She just looked what was really there and found art in reality. That's what I will do for Mars. And with paintings. You just look closely and you'll find art everywhere.
When my daughter has to solve a problem, she grabs her sketchbook. Lizzie has to draw to work through a problem. She's a born artist. I remember one time the whole family went to a restaurant. And my wife and I get into a spirited discussion about Pulp Fiction and what is the best scene in that movie. And Elizabeth? She just draws her favorite moment right on the white tablecloth. I wish I could say that the waitress was understanding about a child's need to express herself. But Elizabeth was already 18. I want you to understand, I need you to understand how important it is that Elizabeth leaves Earth. Think of Picasso. The most important decision that he ever made was to leave Malaga.
Even if I paint the perfect painting, no one will ever look at it and see what I see. No one will know my name.
That's Picasso, played by Alex Rich in Genius Picasso. And he's completely right. If Picasso would not have moved to Paris, no one would know his name. Nobody would notice him. The same is true for Elizabeth. On Earth, she's one of a million artists. On Mars, she's basically the only artist. And yes, Elizabeth, I just compared you to Picasso. No pressure. That Elizabeth even ended up on Mars is a miracle, and I get to that in a moment. Because yes, Elon Musk built the first city on Mars. But don't kid yourself, it's not for everyone. Here's Elon explaining in a SpaceX video.
I do think that there's a business model where if you can reduce the cost of a flight to Mars or moving to Mars to around the cost of a middle-class home in California, so maybe to around $500,000, then I think you'd have enough people who would buy a ticket and move to Mars to be part of creating a new planet and be part of kind of the founding team of a new civilization.
$500,000. And that was back in 2012. Now it's 2047. And with inflation, that's more than $1 million nowadays. There's zero chance that a family like us could ever make that kind of money. So, how did Elizabeth end up on Mars?
My friend Mark was the one who wanted to go. His parents are rich and they paid for his ticket. I was at his farewell party and he gave such an emotional speech, how he would go and design all these amazing machines for Mars. And all I could think about was, me, I want to go there. I want this life. What kind of pictures could I paint with an inspiration like Mars? I could define Mars for the whole generation. And then came the end of the party and suddenly Mark is like, you know, guys, I've been thinking, I can't do this. I can't go to Mars. Who here wants the ticket? And before I could think, I already said, me. And here I am.
Yes, here you are, full of hope. But first, you chickened out. You got scared too. I had to push you to follow your dreams, like I pushed you to really enter university, instead of just dreaming about it. Which makes everything that happened my fault.
Papa, it's so terrible. Shit. Papa, I need to talk to you. Are you there?
We get to that in a moment, but first, it's hard for every parent when their child leaves home. My daughter left my whole world. I cannot simply reach out to her, take her in my arm, tell her, all will be good, and it will be good, we will make it good. I have to. I have little money and I'm far away back here on Earth. So I created this podcast to help Elizabeth. We were born with a spoon in our mouth. But the spoon was made of plastic, not silver. If you're poor, then you need other people. You need to reach out, bond with people, and then help each other. That's how we build a better life for every single one of us.
Papa, where are you? I need to talk to you. This is all so shitty. It's a catastrophe. Papa, get back to me as soon as you get this, okay? Right away.
Yes, in a moment, okay? As I was saying, I love my children. And I love Elizabeth, my little girl. But there's a big difference between her generation, born around 2020, and my own generation. You see, we are survivors. We were there, at the brink of climate change. We saw the rise of fascism, and we saw the dawn of the digital age, like cavemen who discovered fire and feared it. We walked right up to the edge of the cliff, but there we stopped. We paused. And then we took one giant step forward. Sorry, couldn't help myself. We took a giant step away from the cliff. We cleaned up our act. We got rid of coal and built solar panels, wind turbines and battery storage on a massive scale. We connected all of Europe in one giant electric grid. Now sun from Madrid powers factories in Berlin. Wind from Copenhagen powers air conditioners in Lisbon. The US did the same. Electricity is so cheap now that most companies simply offer a flat fee. Our cities became quiet as electric bikes and cars replaced the old gas guzzlers. The highways turned into endless strips of forest and wildlife. We transport our goods by train if you don't download them to our 3D printers. More importantly, we built a society that is more fair, more inclusive, and more gentle. We realized that what we really want is not more stuff, but more joy in our daily experiences. This experience has changed the psyche of my whole generation. We used to fear the end of the world. Then we took action and changed our story. Now we are eternal optimists. Elizabeth's generation, they worry so much about small things. I remember when Lizzie was a teenager, how she sometimes would go like, and I nearly got a heart attack. For me to go like, meant somebody got killed. To Elizabeth, it meant that she was out of cornflakes. That's how different our two generations measure the drama in their lives. I think it proves how much better our life has become, that she can get upset about small stuff like that. Hi Dodger, how are you? Did you make friends already? Listen, what is worrying you? Tell me, we figure it out, step by step. Mama sends her love. Bye-bye. A message to Mars takes up to 20 minutes, depending on where Earth and Mars are in their respective cycle around the Sun. The answer takes another 20 minutes to get back to Earth. So, we have some time to kill. So, what's new in your life? Anything interesting happened? Just kidding. Here's Elizabeth's answer.
SpaceX called. They said I took advantage of them when I came to Mars. Mark got a discount on his ticket because he's an engineer. And I'm an artist, so the discount doesn't apply on me. And now they want $200,000 or they will send me home. What do I do?
Elizabeth sent me the paperwork and there it was. Tickets are transferable, discounts are not. My daughter has to cough up $200,000 or they send her packing. And still wanted $200,000. We got maybe $2,000 in the bank. My wife has another $50 in her purse. Elizabeth's got my full attention now. But I can't show my worries. Okay, Mäuschen. Here's what we do. We all chip in. I make a list of family and friends, and you write up which of your friends might help. Together we get there. Don't worry. Pez, look into your bag. Bye.
It's the book. I can't believe you still had it. The pages are all yellow. And yes, it says, "Don't panic" on the cover. Thank you, Papa. You always knew how to make me smile. I have 10,000 saved and I will ask Dan and a few others. Oh, I didn't tell you about the room where I stay. It has a view on the sea. Look, when I press on this button, now it has a view on the Alps. And now it's New York. It looks totally real. But when I press off, the reality window is just a screen, and behind that a bare rock. Kind of dull. But that's life on Mars. Always deep in the hole without a real window.
Hey Lizzie, you know what the hitchhiker says. The answer to life, universe and money worries is 42. We got 42,000 together already. Mom and I take a mortgage on the house and your brothers also help. Now, I know you will not like this. This one will be hard. My daughter comes after her mother. She's very proud and don't like to ask for help. She rather suffers heroically than to admit that she needs other people. So this is going to hurt her ego, but it has to be done. I know you will not like this, but did you consider talking to the Madlena K Fund? That art grant for which you applied was worth 50K. That gets us halfway there.
No way I'm gonna do that. They didn't give me the grant the first time, and now I'll go back there and back? Forget about it. I'm going to talk to SpaceX. They can stuff their fee where the sun doesn't shine. They should have told me that before I got on their rocket. Damn that Elon Musk.
I wouldn't want to be at the other end of that conversation. If you haven't seen my daughter angry, think of Christmas. A quiet night, snow outside, a single candle on the Christmas table. Imagine the scratch of a match. Now throw the match into a puddle of gasoline. Boom!
I'm back from SpaceX. What a jerk! Can you imagine? He simply said no! Every argument I made, no. In the end, I got so angry I shouted at him. And he threw me out of his office. They walked me out with security. I'm so furious. Oh, and now they want their money in 72 hours. Or I'm back on the ship home.
Shit. 3 days. There's zero chance to get the money now. Elizabeth has to find her own way. I trust my daughter. She will fight toes and nails to stay on Mars. Nobody will squeeze her back into that tin can and kill her one shot for greatness. 3 days go by. SpaceX security is already on their way to Elizabeth's apartment when I get a message from Lizzie.
Papa, have you heard of the phrase, city air is liberating?
In medieval Europe, the peasants were literally property. They worked the fields of the aristocracy for free. They were not allowed to leave the land or marry without permission. As a matter of fact, they were sold and bought like cattle. In other words, they were slaves. In most of Europe, serfdom was ended only in 1810. In Russia, the peasants, the mushiki, were still sold and bought till 1861.
There was one hope for the peasants. If you escaped and made it to the city, you could become free. You needed to survive for 1 year and 1 day in the city, and then you were free. That's why they say, Stadtluft macht frei. City air is liberating.
Okay, I know you're wondering. No, I do not remember that times. I'm not that old. Thank you very much. Here's the thing. SpaceX runs Mars like a private fiefdom. From their point of view, it's completely logical. They invested a crazy amount of money to build Mars City. So they own it and they make the rules. But that's not going to last. There are over 800,000 people on Mars now. They want to control their own destiny.
There's this woman who worked with Fridays for Future back in the 2020s. She has a ton of experience organizing political movements. You should hear some of the stories she told me. You would love her. Well, they started to organize the people on Mars, even elected their own representatives. Now they push to establish a proper city council with proper elections so they can speak for all Mars citizens. SpaceX fights them at every step, but they have to give in on many demands because the public pressure is so big.
One concession that SpaceX had to make: when someone comes to Mars illegally, then they must have a way to become part of society. A citizen, as the independent movement says. A tenant, as SpaceX calls it.
It would be against the spirit of Mars to keep people hiding all their lives. So they looked at this medieval rule about peasants and said, let's do that. If SpaceX cannot catch me for 1 year and 1 day, then they will give up and I am free.
It is 12 hours before SpaceX sends Elizabeth home to Earth. That woman from the independence movement offers to help. They can sneak my daughter into Mars City. What do we do? fuck Elon. That's it for episode 0 of the Solarpunk podcast. The real show starts on New Year's Eve. I hope to bring you at least 12 episodes. The story will be fun. Elizabeth has to escape to Mars City, and SpaceX will do whatever it takes to catch her before the year is over. We will watch them play cat and mouse for a full year and have a lot of fun. Hey, subscribe to the Solarpunk podcast. That way you get a reminder when season 1 starts. There's one more way how you can help. Give me feedback. What did you like? What did you hate? What do you wish will happen in season 1? Send me your feedback right here in the comments or on our website solarpunk.art. Nothing left but to say thank you. Elizabeth was played by Yevgenia Piak. We used quotes by Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin and Tina Fey in 30 Rock, Alex Rich as Picasso from Genius Picasso, Elon Musk, and of course, our very own washing machine. Our musical genius is Alexander Zilkov. You find his channel on YouTube. It's called Nieskuchnia Sound, which translates to not boring sounds. Solarpunk was written and presented by me, Chris Piak. Thank you for listening and subscribe so that you get a reminder when season 1 starts. Oh, and of course, share this podcast with your friends. Bye.